Okay, so video 4 of 25 things that I learned before 25. If it hurts, you are probably growing. The irony is this: once you actually do start to have a little bit of momentum, you are expecting yourself to have a lot more elation, happiness, joy, and you will. You'll have a high for about 5 minutes, and then what will happen is you've now created more stress and more work for you to deal with. Because more opportunity is painful. Alex Hormozy said this: decline is painful, growth is painful, staying the same is painful in business. So all of it is painful. But you got to pick what pain you want to tolerate, right? So I'd rather the pain of growth, which in reality is like this, sometimes like this, right? Instead of the pain of being neutral. I'd rather try to splash in a change that causes a reaction that might make me dip for a second, but now I'm able to learn what caused that dip and then recorrect it and go upwards. So if it hurts, you're probably growing, and you actually need to get very comfortable to endure that pain. Because whenever you try to build anything of any fortitude or strength or difficulty, just know that there's a ton of people that have quote unquote made it, but they're actually just better at dealing with the pain than you are at this stage. So that's the first thing. Now, this one's a bit controversial, and some will agree, some will not. If you're sub 30 years old, invest into your mind, not things. So here's what I mean by this. I'm 25 now. By 22, I had, let's just say, enough funds to buy or invest into my first property or to get a new car. But what I did instead was I started dumping by 23, from 22 to 23, probably $40,000 to $50,000 into what is now grown a lot more to Coursera Central, other seminars, at a cognitive behavioral coach, so I could, operate at a higher level psychologically and resolve some of my, quirks that I didn't want and stuff like that. And some might have said, mate, you're 22, get a property. I had friends saying, bro, get a property. I had parents saying, you're just a couple $1,000s away from getting your first property. And it was great advice. But I also think what's even potentially better advice is if you invest into this thing, then by the time you're 30, you could have a plethora of skills that allow you to buy a property once a month. There's someone in the US that I was watching, and he's a marketing guy. I think he's 29 or 30 years old. And he started his marketing agency in his early 20s. His parents were entrepreneurs, and he had a wife. He got married around 26, 27. And, he would still drive the same, I think it was a Subaru, until his business was even doing like a couple $1 million a year. And the irony was his employees were like, mate, I've got a nicer car than yours, this, that, and the third. But now at 30 years old, his marketing agency is essentially now a mergers and acquisition firm. So basically he has a marketing department, which does, Amazon, e-commerce, info products, but they also buy other businesses. That inspired me a lot. And I started watching this guy last year. And he's 29. But imagine if he spent, $100,000, $250,000, $20,000, even $10,000 on, a new car or a new property. I'm not saying he probably has properties and stuff now. I think he has Lambos now. But imagine if he did all that in his mid-20s, late 20s. He wouldn't have the liquid cash to be able to buy companies, which create an exorbitant, significant amount of extra cash flow, right? So in my opinion, and again, maybe I'll change my mind on this by the time I'm 26 or 27, but so far this has reigned true for me. Investing into my mind has been one of the best decisions for me personally, because for me, I know if I ever want to go back into the corporate marketplace, I can demand at least $150K a year. If I want to change business models, whilst the learning curve might be a while, at least I can bring marketing and sales to it. So my ability to weather the storm emotionally and psychologically is improved and has improved, not just because of the skill, but it's more because I know that I have spent 5-6 years investing that by this point, if we're including business ventures, easily over $100,000 to $150,000 of my own money into different mentors, coaches, events, podcasts, experiences, traveling. And now I have a conviction that allows me to bounce back irrespective of the fall, because there will be many falls in life, right? So I think if you're sub 30, invest into your mind and yourself and not things. Now, the third thing is this, and not many people know you can do this. Pick the traits you want like a game. So when I was 20, 21 years old, actually maybe even a bit younger, 19 or 20, I would nearly for each year, at the end of each year, around September, October, I'd start to plan for the next year coming up. And I would write, okay, by 25, Dami has this trait, that trait. He is this good of a speaker. He is inspirational to men. He is this to women. He is powerful here. He is strong here. He can sleep really well. He's fierce. He's strong. He weighs this much in kilograms. Like it was that detailed, right? What kind of clothes does he wear? The clothes thing I'm still working on. But everything else I wrote in excruciating detail. And to be honest, I'm pretty fortunate to say that a good 70% of the traits that I actually wanted when I was 2021, I have now. But it was because I literally wrote them out on a piece of paper, or I typed them on a Google Doc, and I was intentional about listening in the early 20s of my life to me repeating and reading out these affirmations of the traits that I want. Dami Yokadara is this, Dami does that, Dami blah, blah, blah. Now at this point, I have found that that's not necessarily the best way for me going forward, but for the first 2-3 years, or maybe in my 20s, I would listen to it nearly every morning. It would annoy my roommate. He'd be like, bro, can you please put it lower? I hear it before I go to work. It's really annoying, right? But I'm telling you, you can actually pick the traits you want if you're intentional enough about naming them and identifying what those traits are. And then, of course, it's going to be up to you to take those steps forward and to actually work on adopting those traits. But if you do this, you'll be surprised how fast your traits will start to configure to the ones that you actually want instead of the ones that are the result of your environment. Because humans are like water. If we stay in a certain suburb, we start to speak like our friends, we start to speak like our parents, etc. But if you really are intentional about, I want this trait, I want to sound like this, you start listening to people that have those traits already. And you start to, again, you start to adopt their patterns. I remember when I was 20, I was at Starbucks and I brought my whiteboard with me, kind of like this. I have multiple of them, and I was planning for 2020. I was 19, I was freshly 20. And I was listening to, some of you guys will know this guy, Patrick Bet-David, and I was watching his videos on like how to sell, how to storytell, right? And it's funny because now I'll get feedback from some people like, bro, you sound like the African PBD, or blah, blah, blah. Or people will use me as a verb when trying to describe maybe their friends that are, making videos on YouTube. Like, bro, you're trying to be like Dami. But 5 years ago, I was quote unquote trying to be someone else, right? But it was more that I was intentional about wanting certain traits and then integrating them into, my perception per se. Okay. So one of the last things for today is this. Oh yeah, this is really important. And I learned this from Robert Greene. There's a book. If you haven't read Robert Greene, I suggest you read all of his books. There's 48 Laws of Power, which is the classic one. Laws of Human Nature, Laws of Seduction, 33 Strategies of War. I think 1 or 2, 50th Law with 50 Cent. And Mastery. Mastery is fantastic. But I think it was the 48 Laws of Power. It is never outshine the master. For those of you that are in the corporate workspace, this is gold for you. I repeat, for those of you in the corporate workspace, this is gold for you. So here's what I mean by this. When I was 21 or 22, I was working for one of the, at the time, fastest growing tech companies in the US. Slack was number 1 and this company was number 2. And I came in as an SDR, which is a sales development representative. And I already had 2 or 3 years sales skills. So I was thinking I was going to come in and just smash the role, but the role smashed me. And initially it was really, really difficult because they were giving me a really tough industry to sell to during, the cough, right? The Rona. So I had to cold call and appointment set auto dealers, used car dealers, OEMs, which are original equipment manufacturers like Toyota, Subaru, Mercedes, etc. And I'm this 21, 22-year-old with no experience selling to car people. So I come in and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stay after hours at the office. I probably was the youngest employee there, or one of the youngest there. I think Peggy was as well. Shout out to Peggy. We're both like 21. And I was like, I'm going to stay after hours with the manager and do role playing for sales and the objection handle. And it was great. I improved very quickly. But what I realized as young as I was in the corporate space is because I was maybe growing so fast and I was putting in all those extra reps, resentment started to appear. So I had an account executive that was above me. And he was way more experienced in his early 30s. He probably knows who he is if he's watching this. And he was really, really good at sales. Like he was, in terms of revenue, bringing in over 100K a month, killing it. And I had an appointment set for him and another person. And initially, it was kind of that corporate friendship, relationship, etc. But I wouldn't participate in extracurricular corporate activities. So I wouldn't go to, the parties that have after work or the drinks. I would simply go home, back to my apartment, and then work for another 5-6 hours on my marketing company and, the ideation at the time of Quasara and some other business stuff, some crypto stuff, just trying a ton of stuff. Anyway, it gets to the point where I start to get good. And this guy, to his credit, was really initially very nice to me to help me kind of get the ropes, etc. But there was one day with this account executive, I set him 3 appointments in the day. And at the end of the day, he says, hey, mate, listen, I'm going to be real with you. I didn't attend any of your appointments. I had another really good demo in the morning that someone else set, but keep up the good work. I'm proud of you. Now, there's 2 things that I could have done. I could have arced up to him and been like, oh, who do you think you are? Remember, I'm 21, he's 33. and he's making way more money in the company than him. Who do you think you are? You're trying to challenge me, trying to mess up my stats, you're trying to get me fired. I simply said, oh, okay. Thanks. And he tried to do a big smile. He tried to fob me off, probably thinking I was going to say nothing. What he didn't know is that I had a meeting with the manager, that was the management for all the appointment setters, the next morning. So he's like, hey, Dami, your stats weren't as good as usual. Like, what's going on this month? And I said, well, look, I've been working really hard. You can see my numbers. I've been making the calls. But, this certain account executive, he just decided to not take my call. Dami, who is it? Who did that? And I told him, yeah, look, I don't want to be that guy to say. And he's like, Dami, this is not about you. This is about the company. Because obviously I know, again, that his results are impacted by my results as well because he's the manager. So like, yeah, look, I have to tell you, it's this account executive, and I hate to say that because he's so good at what he does, and I respect his craft, and all that's true. And he's like, Dami, you don't have to be so nice all the time. I'll take this matter into my own hand. Now, if I was 19 and the same thing happened, I probably wouldn't have lashed out, but I probably would have gone toe for toe with the account executive. Who do you think you are? Are you trying to mess me up? But then he can easily just go and tell the manager, get rid of this kid. But instead, again, I didn't try to I didn't try to put myself on to what we call put yourself onto the master. You never want to try and arc up unnecessarily to people that are significantly older than you or have more status than you, have more power than you in certain situations, at least in a corporate or business setting. Now, again, don't misconstrue this as don't stand up to the power, right? I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is if you actually don't try to what we call outshine the master, or you try to, show that you're better than them or bigger than them, you actually create enough space for you to recalibrate, strategize, and oftentimes there's more than 10 different ways to solve a problem. But too many people are so reactive. I want to look like I'm the big dog. Guys, an entrepreneur has both high ego and is extremely shameless. You know what I mean? Think about the art of cold calling. You're calling strangers and asking for money. But you also have been able to build a team, many of you watching this, right? So those are a few things that I've learned, real life experiences when it comes to, dealing with people. And of course, when it comes to mindset. And I can guarantee you guys, if you integrate some of these things, you pick the traits you want, you make sure that you're investing into your mind, you're making sure that you're comfortable with the hurt that you're enduring, and you're willing to not try to outshine everyone that's perhaps more successful than you, and you're trying to be diplomatic and fair and reasonable. And then when you need help, you can ask of it because your ego is not so high. You'll be quite surprised the leaps and bounds you can make in this life. Anyway, if you guys like this, share it with a friend, comment. Let me know what your thoughts are. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And, I'll see you guys in the next one.